They felt like, I think the biggest common denominator in this election is people want a good life and ability to provide for their family.
Well,
whether we agree or not with Donald Trump's plans,
Black people
they thought that he was
one of the
reflective.
poorest demographics in this country, but they voted for Kamala Harris.
But there was a split, and more of them voted for Donald Trump than had.
But she's not answering the question. I wish Sonny would have been like, no, time out, hold on, pause, wait. Answer the question. If everyone, is concerned about the economy and bills and this, which they should, I get that, but unfortunately our politics isn't focused on that. So, you gotta, utilize what you can. Why did 85% of black folks voted for Harris? So one thing that I have noticed when looking at the results and just the statistics regarding the 2024 election, and it's something that I didn't want to make a solo video about because it wouldn't bring any substance to it. But it seems like now, as you can see by the title and the picture here, people are talking about it, and I don't think a lot of people are too surprised. And when it comes to looking at the stats of the 2024 election regarding black voters and white voters, it is a dramatic shift. And the conversation at this point needs to be had. You know what I'm saying? If you look at, the stats here, 41% of white folks voted Democrat, 57% voted Republican. When it comes to black voters, 85% of black voters voted Democrat and only 13% voted Republican. So if you don't understand what the division is, I am sorry, either you are extremely unaware of just people, and when it comes to racist things being said, that could affect a lot of people's perception of you or you and your party. If you don't understand that, then I'm sorry, this conversation is not for you. You have to understand how if you say something to a group of people, that could affect their perception of you. Or you don't care, so therefore you are part of the problem, or you're just a coward and you're afraid to have those deep, hard conversations with people that don't look like you. And if you disagree with me, I have a Discord to where, I have an open door policy. Let's have this conversation. That's what this channel is about. But to say that race doesn't play a part of this political election we just had, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And no one's saying this is the only thing, but I would say this is probably about 25% of the reason why people voted the way that they did. And when it comes to misogyny, can't talk right today, that also plays a portion. I honestly think that's probably 20% of it. And trust me, I done met a lot of people throughout my whole entire life. I'm 37 years old. I know what men think of women. It is not a secret. Just open up a YouTube page, type in Andrew Tate, and you'll see a whole compilation of men talking the way that they do, and that kind of shows it in the stats. But let's go ahead and hear, who is this? The View. I honestly, I don't watch The View, but Sunny and don't know her name. But let's hear them talk about this situation here.
Well, if he's right, then why didn't people vote for the former prosecutor who actually had policy plans to help the working class?
And she's responding to a Bill Maher clip, but I can't play that because then that's going to demonetize everything, and I don't feel like messing with that. So she's responding to a Bill Maher clip that, he's explaining why Democrats lost.
Again, I got my popcorn. I don't know why people did what they did. I see all these reasons, and so, okay, time will tell. But what do y'all think?
I just, I know that as a country, it's very difficult for people to believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well. I think that we don't want to think that about ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, but it's my lived experience tells me that it does still exist, even if your lived experience doesn't tell you that it exists. And you know, the facts support that. I think we have a graph. If you look at there's a clear racial divide in who voted for Trump as opposed to who voted for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
It's very clear. It's not only clear by race, but it's also clear by education. And so the notion somehow that that is not true, this is by education.
So that's, so I don't know if you guys can see, you might be able to like zoom in and see what I'm looking at here. But, oh, that's the wrong chart. Let's look at the other one. Let's see. So yeah, whites 57%, blacks 85%, Latinos 52%, Asians, you know, fairly closer in the middle. But I mean, just a huge divide between black voters and white voters. And like I've been trying to, you know, explain to people, like they keep lumping in, you know, pretty much all men voted for Republicans. No, as you can see by the stats, black men, black women, black voters, we are not going to tolerate racism because we understand the history of when you have an individual, even if you don't think Trump is racist. And I used to think that Trump used to, you know, mess around with it because he knows his base. So he's going to flirt with it. But now in the past year, he's just full throttle. So it's like you can't ignore that. And I think black folks, at least we understand, you know, we're not a monolith. We don't agree on everything, which is understandable. But when it comes to racism, that's you can't flirt with that. We already understand the history of electing a racist person and what kind of laws, what kind of bills, legislation comes out of an individual like that. Black folks are always going to get the short end of that stick. That's why I think by large we voted for Democrats, not because we think Democrats are going to do what's needed for the black community. We know that. But unfortunately, with the two-party system that we have to deal with till the meantime, our best bet is with Democrats. There is nothing there for us in the Republican Party, not at all. You cannot argue that.
Harris. It's very clear. It's not only clear by race, but it's also clear by education. And so the notion somehow that that is not true, this is by education. Those who attended college.
Damn, that. So I don't feel bad when I say most of Trump supporters are idiots. And honestly, you don't need none of this right here. You don't need no college degree to understand most of this stuff, but you know, okay, whatever.
Voted for her at a higher degree than those that didn't.
But I think
I've
you're
said
missing
that.
his point.
Let me just finish. And so I've said that before, and there was so much backlash because I think it's an uncomfortable, inconvenient truth about this country.
But his whole point is they didn't vote for him because of racism and misogyny. They voted for him because they felt like, I think the biggest common denominator in this election is people want a good life and ability to provide for their family.
Well,
and whether we agree or not with Donald Trump's plans,
black people
they thought that he was reflective.
One of the poorest demographics in this country, but they voted for Kamala Harris.
But there was a split, and more of them voted for Donald Trump than had.
But she's not answering the question. I wish Sonny would have been like, no, time out, hold on, pause, wait. Answer the question. If everyone, you know, is concerned about the economy and bills and in this, which they should, I get that, you know, but unfortunately our politics isn't focused on that. So, you know, you got to, you know, utilize what you can. Why did 85% of black folks voted for Harris? Once again, I understand that, you know, if whoever politician has the best plan or has the best, you know, policies, which once again, Trump failed at doing that, but that's another conversation. Answer the question. Why did black folks vote for Harris and not for Trump? That simple. She can't answer that because, unfortunately, Trump had brought race to the forefront of all these conversations. He brought immigrants and the demonization of immigrants to the forefront of the conversation. Like I said before, Harris didn't run on, I'm black, I'm a woman, you need to vote for me. She didn't even hint at that. But Trump, when he went to that conference with black journalists, Kamala Harris, she's not really black. She chose to be a black. As soon as he said that, everyone's now questioning Harris's blackness. Everything that people want to talk about, how, what school and how many black friends does she got? Like, now her race is at the forefront of every conversation. So once again, you missed me with the bullshit. Answer the question, and then we can have a conversation.
Historically, I think that there's such a desire. If you really think the vast majority of this country voted because of racism and misogyny, you're missing it. Most of my family, a lot of my family doesn't have college degrees.
But the stats are the stats.
But that's not, it doesn't say I'm white, I voted for Donald Trump because of racism. That's not what stat. What stat are you talking about?
Let me just dissect the two.
Yes, you can. There's a lot more.
Hold on. Calm down.
You can't say this race had nothing to do with race if 85% of black folks voted one way and 57% of white folks voted another. If it's not race, something needs to be said about that. A conversation still needs to be had. So if it's not race, then what is it? Like I'm not the sharpest knife in the kitchen, but if it's not race, then I need you to educate me on what it is. Hey, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Everybody just take a breath. Take a breath.
Well,
take a beat.
Well, let me jump in here because I think, Sonny, what you say is valid. And I think absolutely that is part of the problem. But when we hang our hat on that's the only problem or the main.
Saying it's the only.
I'm not saying.
And that's a switch. Whoever this lady is, shut your mouth and listen better. You need to listen. Activate those listening skills, okay? Eye contact. Don't think about nothing else except for the words that are coming out of my mouth. No one is saying that is the only reason. No one has ever said, at least to my knowledge, who's credible, who knows what they're talking about, is saying the only reason why Trump won was because of race. No. If you look at the stats, it's a whole bunch of factors. And they provided so much. Take a look at it. It's more than just by race, okay? They break everything down, which is amazing. That opens up so much conversation. But if you look at the simple fact that a lot of black folks voted this way, a lot of white folks voted this way, the question is why? That's the conversation that we're having. So, come on now.
Saying you are, but I'm saying the backlash is that when people hang their hat on that being the only reason, any criticism of Vice President Harris must be because she's a woman or she's black. I voted for Hillary Clinton, not because she was a woman, she was the most qualified. I voted for Vice President Kamala Harris.
No one's arguing.
Because more of my values fell in line with what she stood for. So all of that can be true. There is something here to the socioeconomic class, though, that is crossing racial divide in academic and education, too. Americans with a college degree 30 years ago were roughly 20% of the population and held the same percentage of household wealth as those without a degree. Yeah. 30 years later, this is important, Americans with a college degree account for 38% of the population and 73% of the household wealth. The haves and the have-nots have gone so far apart that they are rising up right now, and they cross every line of our democracy.
Okay, can I?
Okay.
So, look,
Go ahead.
I think most people are not saying that it was all about sexism and it was all about racism. Right. Most people are not saying that. I would say to Bill Maher, who I like, whose show I've been on several times, that maybe, just maybe, when you live life as a woman and as a woman of color, you feel it and you know it a little bit more than a white man does in America. And so I'm not saying, he says that folks see everything through the lens of racism and sexism. Not everything, But if you're not seeing racism and sexism in America, then you need to clean your lenses.
But if I
because,
can point-
you know, so I you know, look, this is something that I also find interesting, that when Democrats and liberals talk about race or sexism, it's immediately labeled as identity politics, which has a negative connotation. It's a term that Republicans have coined, and it's been very effective.
Just like every other word, Republicans are just conniving individuals. They will literally take a word like woke, critical race theory, and even, you know, simple conversations about identity politics, which in the right context, in the right conversation, it is helpful. When you have the data and understanding how race can play a factor in why a group of people, you know, versus this group of people, and if there's a large gap in wealth or education, then unfortunately you got to have that identity conversation, obviously. But of course, the Republicans will take a word or a conversation like that and dilute it so they can dominate the conversation. And unfortunately, people let them do that. So therefore, every time we want to talk about race, when it's a valid conversation, oh, you're just race baiting, or you're just, you know, blah, blah. And it's like, now the conversation crumbles. And now we can't get to at least an understanding or a solution to why we need to have a conversation. So,
but when Donald Trump goes to Miami and talks to Cubans, that's not identity politics. When Donald Trump goes to Dearborn, Michigan and promises Arabs something, that's not identity politics. When he goes to Jews and promises them the opposite, that's not identity politics.
So I think it's important that we remember 2/3 of this country does not have a 4-year degree. And in fact, 38% who do live 9 years longer than those who don't. Something is happening in this country. It's a lot of my family who don't have 4-year degrees. They may not even have associate's degrees, who they're working harder than they ever have. They have multiple jobs and they can't get ahead. Kamala Harris had this great thing about 25,000.
All right, now they're getting into something else. But I mean, which, you know, is all valid conversations and it needs to be had. And when you have data and facts and numbers and, you know, some, you know, as long as it's coming from a credible source, because anyone can take numbers, manipulate them and have it, you know, bolster their argument. So, you know, not all numbers are created equal, but when you do have information that should formulate a positive substantive conversation. And unfortunately, at least my understanding, black folks voted Democrats, majority of white folks voted Republican. There's a conversation that needs to be had. And that's what this channel is all about. In my understanding, you know, just to lay it out here, I'm not trying to have like an hour-long, you know, video here, because people's, you know, attention span is not that long. So trust me, I know. It has to do with the crazy rhetoric coming from Donald Trump, and it trickles down to everybody else. If it was just, you know, his lackeys and just, you know, YouTubers that are just stoking up the race and saying crazy things about black and brown people, I think people will give Trump a little bit more leeway. Because I'm not going to hear some crazy person on TikTok who wants to trans every person in the world and, you know, do all this weird stuff. I'm not going to, you know, take that person and lump them with Harris. No, I'm only taking what Harris is saying as face value. If Harris says X, Y, and Z, I'm basing her off that. But unfortunately, and I showed plenty of videos of Trump himself saying racist things. You know, immigrants are poisoning the blood of America. That's old white supremacist talking points. Look it up. That originates from something. Trump didn't just make that up. That originates from something. When Trump says, the DNA of these immigrants, you know, like they are born a certain way. Once again, that originates from white supremacy. look this up. Just do a few minutes of reading, and then you could be like, oh, I can kind of understand why black folks, brown folks kind of look at Trump a little racist. And the list goes on. Like, we'll be here all day. But once again, if you guys disagree with anything that I said in this video, or you do agree, let me know in the comments down below, or hit that Discord button so we can have that one-on-one talk. And like always, let's have that conversation.